All right, I'd like to call tonight's San Mateo County Harbor District Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting December 20th, 2017 to order. Could we start with first I'd like to welcome the large number of people we have sitting in the audience here. Thank you. And may we have a roll call? Oh, we haven't, yeah, I guess we're going to close out the other meeting. So could I ask council to reflect our group thought?
Sure. The district has just come out of a closed session in a special meeting during which the commission took no formal action, gave appropriate direction to council, but there's no action to report. And with that, I think you can adjourn your special meeting and go into your regular meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Roll call.
President Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Now, on with our regular meeting. May we have a roll call?
Yeah. Commissioner Bernardo?
Here.
Commissioner Brennan?
Here.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Present.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Here.
President Mateusz?
Here. This time of the evening when we take public comment for items not related to items on the agenda. The first public comment will be from Mary Lorenz.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the public. I'm asking the board to please consider moving item E13, wildlife protection, and have it follow item D7, lost fishing gear recovery, as these two items have things in common. Also, I would like to ask all members of the public who are interested or listening or commenting on the wildlife protection proposal to please raise their hands. As you can see, there are many people from the public here tonight for this particular item, and in order to respect the public and their time, again, I'm asking please that E13 to follow D7. Thank you.
John Olam.
Not here.
Lisa Fernandez.
I was going to say the same thing as Mary Lorenz, if we could move the order. Thank you.
Harvey Rarbach.
Good evening, Commissioners. Harvey Rohrbach. I'm the Vice Mayor of Half Moon Bay and the Northern District representative from the League of California Cities Coastal Issues Group, but I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen. I'm delighted to hear that the Coastal Commission has approved the permit for the Mavericks event this year. I think that's a wonderful thing for the coast. I think it's a wonderful thing for Half Moon Bay, and going forward, I'm delighted to see that Commissioner Brennan, among others, has required or asked the Coastal Commission to make gender equality an enforceable requirement. I think that's a step forward. Had the Commission listened to Commissioner Brennan 2 years ago and not issued a 5-year permit to the firm that has gone bankrupt, there probably would have been an event in 2016 and maybe 2017. So I urge you to think carefully about whom to give the permits to, and to make sure that gender equality is part of any future Mavericks event. And I'm looking forward to having the event this winter. It should be a wonderful thing. And happy holidays to everybody.
Ashley Gray.
Good evening, Commission, members of the public. My name is Ashley Gray. I live in Montero. Thank you all very much for the work you continue to do. I would like to echo Ms. Loren's request that we move up the wildlife protection for the members of the public who have to get up early tomorrow and teach our children like I do. That it would be great to be able to get that item addressed sooner than later. Thank you for the consideration.
Chris Lannon Liang.
Just stand from here and mimic what the rest of the group has requested, moving the item agenda regarding wildlife protection up on the agenda.
All right, that concludes public comments for items more or less not on the agenda, but kind of sort of think we're gonna come up into more items here momentarily. Commissioner comments. Do any of the commissioners have comments to make tonight?
I do.
Commissioner Chang Crawley.
I just wanted to, I wanted to thank the staff and our community judges for participating and putting together a wonderful Lighted Boats Festival. I was able to go to that, and it was a great experience, and a lot of people had fun, and I'm glad that we have a lot of community support for it. So thank y'all.
I have a comment, but also I'd like to pull something from the consent calendar if I may.
All right.
And that is just some minutes for number 2, C2.
Oh, it's okay.
Special meeting, August 16th.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments?
And I have a comment also.
Okay.
So this comment is on the matter of sexual harassment complaints. So there was a sexual harassment complaint, and I stated last month that I felt that the district policy regarding sexual harassment is flawed and does not adequately address the problem. So this is how it moves forward. The complaint is made. The district council, which is Mr. Miller, makes a determination whether to hire an investigator. If an investigator is hired, the investigator investigates and then provides a report. The report goes back to Mr. Miller, and he's the final arbiter of what happens with that report. So I believe that there needs to be a completely independent investigation of this, because Mr. Miller is conflicted for at least 2 reasons. One, he is counsel for the district, and thereby his mission is to protect the district, not the individual making a complaint. So that just seems wrong to me. And Commissioner Brennan has also championed the removal of Mr. Miller as district counsel, which would be another reason that there's a conflict. Okay, that's the end of my comment for that. Thank you.
All right.
I have a commissioner comment.
Go ahead.
So I also would like to mention that the Lighted Boat Festival was a great success this year. There was a lot of wonderful music, and it was a real joy. So for everybody that attended, I think you know what I'm talking about, and if you didn't, please come next year, because it's really fun and it's a great way to get to meet our local boating community. So highly recommend it. And then if we're pulling consent items, I'd also like to mention that I'd like to pull item 4 and 5. And then my last comment is just that currently there is a sexual harassment investigation into a complaint that I made, and my experience with the investigation so far, I've had a number of people ask me about it, has been disappointing. I do feel that the process is not truly independent as it was portrayed or said to be, and I've been told by the person who's doing the interviews that her report will be going back to our general counsel for his review. He hired her, so our general counsel selected the investigator, who's also an attorney, and has been interviewing people. She told me that she has absolutely no ability to provide input on how the information is handled. All she's been instructed to do is interview and collect information, but then it goes to our general counsel, Stephen Miller, for processing. And our general counsel has also sent me an email that said that it will be up to him to decide how the investigation is handled and how the information is handled. So from my perspective, it does not feel like a transparent process. It also doesn't feel like an independent investigation. So I just wanted to give that update to the public, that in case they're wondering. And I think right now, with all the attention on sexual harassment in our country, we have a tremendous opportunity to reinvent the process by which we conduct these investigations. And I think that our board has not weighed in on how this investigation be conducted at all, not at any point. And there is clearly a problem with the investigation itself, and I think these are problems that could be resolved, and the investigation could be done in a very ethical and transparent and independent way, but to date that has not been the case. So just wanted to let people know that. Thank you.
And lastly, if I may, I'd like to also move that we move the Wildlife Protection Committee request forward.
All right. So far, I've had moving on to the consent calendar, I've had a request to pull items 2, 4, and 5. Is there a motion to approve 1, 3, and 6?
So, second.
Commissioners, roll call.
President Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernardo.
Aye.
Yeah, that moves us on to item D7. Lost Fishing Gear Recovery Program, presentation by the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association. Staff report prior to our presentation.
This is an opportunity for the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association to give an update to the board and the public on their lost fishing gear recovery program. While the computer and the projector are getting set up so that the executive director of the association, Lisa Damrosch, is here in the audience, can give her presentation. I'll just give you a little, very brief background. Are we set up, ready to go?
When you're.
Yeah, okay. This is the third year of the program in partnership between the Half Moon Bay Commercial Fisheries Trust, the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association, the Harbor District, and the Nature Conservancy to recover to date 838 crab pots, resulting in presumably a parallel decrease in whale entanglements and other impacts on marine wildlife. So with that, I introduce Lisa Damrosch and turn it over.
Hello, commissioners and large number of people from the public. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As Steve said, my name is Lisa Damrosch, and I'm here to share some information regarding what I think is a pretty exciting program that's been managed by the commercial fishing community in Pillar Point Harbor for the past 3 years. Hopefully I can make things work. Okay. So let's get right into it. As you know, the Dungeness crab fishery is incredibly important to our commercial fishing fleet here in Half Moon Bay. It's a highly valuable state resource, averaging an ex-vessel value of approximately $59.6 million a year. And locally, over the last 5 years, an average of 2.2 million pounds of Dungeness crab, representing almost $7.3 million per year, is landed just here in Pillar Point Harbor. In response to an increase in reported entanglements, the California Dungeness Crab Fishing Gear Working Group, which is a group of commercial fishermen, recreational fishermen, scientists, conservation groups, and fishery managers from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, initially convened in the fall of 2015. Since that time, more than 100 fishermen have been trained to respond to an entanglement event, including here in Half Moon Bay. I think we were one of the first trainings conducted. And hundreds of best practices fishing guides have been distributed to the fleet. There's also been important research into the key drivers of entanglement risk on an annual basis. With the support of the Crab Fleet and the Dungeness Crab Task Force, Senate Bill 1287 was signed in 2016 to support lost gear recovery efforts. And although that law has not yet been implemented by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, 2017 is showing a significant decrease in reported entanglements. The industry was supportive of SB 1287, but there was not a lot of real understanding of how a mandated lost gear recovery program would actually work in a port like ours. So with the support of the Nature Conservancy and the San Mateo County Harbor District, we got to work in the summer of 2015. So often, programs like this are created by groups that are removed from the actual industry that has to live with the outcomes. Our fishermen felt it was important to test an industry-driven model for a program that would be sustainable, affordable, and manageable for the fleet. The goal of the program was to increase the amount of lost fishing gear coming out of the water and to inform the eventual implementation of SB 1287, which we're still working on. It is really important to understand before we go any further that no fisherman wants to lose gear. However, due to weather, ocean conditions, some level of annual gear loss is unavoidable. Traditionally, fishermen will pick up each other's pots and leave them on the dock. Been doing this for decades. Gear recovery programs are a way to increase the amount of gear recovered and do not keep fishermen from continuing to recover gear informally outside of these programs. So basically, the concept is pretty simple. Gear is recovered at sea, it's brought in, gear is stored while the owners are contacted. Owners that are reached come pick up their gear, they pay to reimburse the program for the recovery, and at the end of the time period, whatever's left is auctioned or salvaged. The program in Half Moon Bay typically begins in late July, early August, which is after Dungeness crab season is closed. Here, the Dungeness crab season closes at the end of June, and all Dungeness crab gear is supposed to be out of the water by that time. Typically, law enforcement of California Department of Fish and Wildlife gives about 2-week grace period. Our program typically waits another week or so. After the season, gear in the water is considered derelict, lost, or abandoned, and it poses a risk for entanglement, especially at that time of year. One of the cool things that's happened through this program is in 2016, a tool was developed by the Nature Conservancy and tested by the Half Moon Bay Fleet to help identify lost gear locations for targeted recovery. This tool allows people on the water after the season to report lost gear locations by emailing a smartphone photo with enabled GPS to a designated email address. The emails and photos then populate a map that then allow the program manager to share that information with the recovery team and help target their efforts. Commissioner Mateo has participated in this and sent us information which has been very helpful, so thank you for that, Tom. In 2017, we expanded the tool to track what happens to the gear after it gets in from when it's first located in the ocean to the final resolution. We'll continue to work to develop the tool here in Half Moon Bay and as well as in other ports. One of the other things we did this year was expanded our work and coordinated with 5 other ports up and down the coast to help them implement similar programs and share access to this tool in their communities. So for all 3 years of the program, the San Mateo County Harbor District has donated an area of the parking lot for storage during the distribution phase of the program. In 2016 and 2017, the program rented construction fencing to secure that gear. Sign on the gear lot alerts fishermen and the public to what's going on. The fence is kept locked with a combination lock that's changed weekly during the distribution phase of the project. In 2017, space had to be increased due to high volume of pots, and the Harbor District accommodated the additional space, which was greatly appreciated. One of my main goals here tonight is not only to inform the Commission of the great work that's being done, but to publicly thank the San Mateo County Harbor District and staff for their support of this program. The ability to store gear in the harbor parking lot during the distribution phase is really critical to the success of the program. This is to share a little bit about the condition of gear recovered through lost gear recovery efforts remains variable. There continues to be more than 20% of the gear that does not include owner identification. We collect a lot of recreational gear. Some of the gear is damaged beyond use. It is part of the Fish and Game Code that all Dungeness crab pots contain contact information, but it's just reality is that's not always the case. And of the 80% recovered this year that did have some information, not all resulted in reaching the original owner, just information's out of date, it's changed, or leads to a number that's been disconnected, etc. So this tells you a little bit about what we see identification-wise. And then this is how we distributed the gear this year. Gear was distributed over the course of 12 weeks. The program was completed by October 15th in time for the space to be used for crab pot staging in preparation for the 2017-2018 season that we're in now. But you can see overall in 2017 we got more than half of the recovered gear back to the original owners, with the rest being salvaged, auctioned, or destroyed. The program is currently dependent on grant funding, and we've been very lucky to have the support of the Nature Conservancy in order to do this work for the past 3 years. The largest expense of the program is the costs for retrieving the gear at sea, with the remaining costs being for admin, fence rental, outreach, etc. One of the goals of this program is to create a model that would actually be self-sustaining over time and not dependent on grant dollars. With 29% of the gear recovered in 2017 not resulting in cost recovery, that's still a little bit of a challenge, just by the nature of the numbers. However, the 2017 program was successful in reducing grant dependency by 16% over 2016, and we did manage to recover a total of 64% of all of the costs through the program in 17. So this is the big news. The first year we retrieved 182 pots, 2016 207, and 449 this year. We believe the increase this year, we anticipated this because of the particularly rough weather that was seen during the 2016-17 season. But overall, we've exceeded our expectations for efficiently getting gear out of the water, recovering 838 pots out of Half Moon Bay alone through the program since 2015. There's probably, between all of the ports we worked with, over 1,000 pots out of the water after the season and out of the way of marine mammals. So we've learned a lot of lessons through this program. I kind of detailed them a little bit more in the written report, but we have learned that these programs can effectively remove gear from the water, that tools and technology provide opportunities, such as this data tool really helps us to manage this, and hopefully will give us the opportunity to have consistent reporting up and down the coast as these programs become more standardized. And the fishermen are generally very supportive of lost gear recovery programs. The vast majority of the fishermen that we call are very pleased to hear that their gear has been found, happy to reimburse the program to get their gear back. We try to keep the costs below what it would cost to get new gear. And as these programs have existed now for a few years, people are a little more understanding that that there are costs associated with getting this gear out, and that it's really important for us as an industry to be proactive in getting this gear out of the water. Local organizations can add capacity and aid in lost gear efforts because this is the Seafood Marketing Association that is members that are going out and getting this gear. And finally, that costs must be affordable for industry and to support the program. Basically, as this is moving forward through the California Department of Fish and Wildlife process, some of the proposals that have come up are cost prohibitive when you start adding a lot of fees on top of already the numbers. So we're working very hard to come up with models that will actually work and be sustainable. So I just want to, again, thank the San Mateo County Harbor District. I particularly want to thank John Draper and the Pillar Point Harbor staff. They are amazing and have been great partners and teammates in this effort. Katie in the office is very helpful. Whoever's on duty, whatever time it is, they're supportive, they share information, they call, and I don't know, I think a lot of times we come here and we're not always able to say the most amazing, glowing things, so I want to put in the record how great John's staff is, and I'd also like to thank General Manager McGrath and John Moran for their support. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, and happy holidays.
Questions? I have a question.
Yeah?
First, a comment. Even when you're not saying amazing things about us, you've always been very professional, and I truly appreciate it. And I think you offer a model for those others that have things to say to us. This is a fantastic program, as I imagine everyone would agree, and it's also a great example of collaboration between multiple bodies, especially the staff and the commercial fishing industry. So here's my question. Question number one is, could you tell me what the status is of that Senate bill, where it is, and then also if there are impediments to making that thing happen, and is there anything we can do?
So the bill has been signed into law. It was, I think, September 2016.
Okay.
It was introduced originally by Senator McGuire. Basically, what it says is the Department of Fish and Wildlife has to make this work. Unfortunately, working with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife can be a challenge. They have been struggling with how to take this model and allow it to work without having too much involvement. I think the department recognizes that the more the department is involved in touching every pot, the more expensive that's going to be and the more likely it's not going to work. Currently, the last report from the department included a proposal which was in October 2017 of how they kind of saw it working, like the department's responsibilities versus lost gear programs. We presented a contrary proposal, basically like, yeah, no, we'll do this, you do that, that's gonna make it more cost effective. They're struggling, I think, with the legalities of that because at the end of the day, the way the law is written is if someone doesn't comply, they can lose their crab permit, which is a really big deal. So there has to be a certain amount of oversight and they're still trying to figure that out. So we are tracking it very closely. I really appreciate the offer. I will definitely reach out through General Manager McGraw if there's something that we need to do on that. Right now, we're just holding their feet to the fire and trying to make sure that we get a program that the industry can live with. I think their other idea is that their program would be over here and we could still do this, which the whole point that we need the department for is the teeth, is the enforcement.
And then one last question, if I may. What has to happen to make the program self-sustaining?
We need to be able to get more of the gear back to the original owners and therefore be reimbursed for it. There's always going to be a little bit that's just not able to be returned. That's part of why the department involvement and enforcement involvement is important because right now it's sort of voluntary. So we need the department to let fishermen know that if you don't pay to get your gear back, then in our model to the department, what would happen is that pie chart that I showed you of final gear distribution, there would be a wedge of that pie that would be, we're giving it to Fish and Wildlife because we don't know what to do. Another thing we've pushed Fish and Wildlife for, which is another confidentiality rule, some of the gear has identification on it, like just a number, or a permit number, or a license number, but we don't have access to who that is. You know, we do pretty well because we have such great fishermen that know each other. There's a lot of guys that'll be like, hey, that's Tom's pot. I recognize the way he does whatever.
Right.
So we do get them back to people, not just through the ID. But so that's the biggest thing. And getting the price up, that we raised the price $20 this year to try and cover the cost. That's how we increased by the 16%. And we did get some pushback on that. I was like, well, wait a minute. You know, why is it $85 to get my pot back and last year it was $65? It really should be even a little bit higher in order to make it. But we're trying to find the sweet spot.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And new gear, just so you know, is about $200 to $250.
Right.
I have a question. So just for those of us who don't know the process, are fishermen paid to go out to look for the gear? What's the nuts and bolts of how it works?
Yeah, so what we did was we are using the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association. In other programs that have done this in other parts of the country and in parts of the state, they've required these trips to be observed and have like some sort of program coordinator on the boat, and that is very prohibitive to get gear out of the water. So we went with the Seafood Marketing Association, well-known collaborative fishermen. Each year a recovery team is identified. They're trained. They have to do a lot besides just get the gear out of the water. They're gathering data. They're entering information into the tool. They are labeling the data or the gear when it comes in. And I think the biggest thing to know about the program, kind of the nuts and bolts of it, is getting it out of the water is the easy part when there's 449 pots that look like that in a yard and they're dirty and you can't tell whose is what. It's not something you can just go move around like checkers. They require a forklift and a lot of manpower. So the recovery team is participating in work days, and then they get paid after the recovery, before the reimbursement, which is where the grant dollars come in. So we have the grant dollars, they do what they need to do, they get the gear out of the water, they meet all of the requirements, they're then paid, and then the program sets about trying to get paid back. And that's where we end up with that delta.
Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Have you worked out any of the issues on the recreational gear that's not worth a fraction of the commercial gear?
No, but it's one of our key things to figure out next year. Some of my recovery guys, in the past I've always, because I'm not out there, so in the past I've always felt like it's the same amount of work, right, to pull the gear and to go get it, regardless of whether what you pull up on the other end is a brand new $250 pot or whether it's broken and ramshackle and can't be used again. It's still, the effort is still being conducted. But some of my guys are like, we can't get paid the same for sport gear, it's killing the program. So we're gonna sit down with the team before we do next year's program, and that'll be one of the things that we potentially try to study while we have grant dollars again, and try to model how that could potentially work. And I think, and you might know better than I do, I think there's been some changes to the recreational laws about requiring identification as well, I think starting this year. So we're hoping the few people that did have recreational identification in the recreational gear did buy it back. So that was good.
Right.
I just want to say thank you for taking the lead on this. I mean, it's innovative. I mean, I think it's a great program. So thank you for taking the lead on it.
I'm gonna echo that. I think it's a win-win for every party, you know, cleaning up and getting this back to the appropriate parties, and if you can't find them, sell them, make
Right.
some money, you know,
Right.
kind of thing. So thank you
Yeah.
for doing that, and thank you, Steve, for continuing to make this work in partnership with the Seafood Marketing Association.
Well, thank all of you. You know, I'm sorry that it took us a few years to come in and share everything, but we wanted to have enough data to, we thought it was pretty cool the first year, but now we know.
It's really cool.
Now we know it's pretty cool and that it can work, and now it's just about getting a long-term sustainable model and the department to play ball with us.
It seems like we could maybe highlight this on our website. I don't know if we're doing that, but this was such a great report. If we could make that easily available on the website would be great.
Actually, your presentation is a little different from what we got in the packet.
Yeah, you got a report. This is
Yeah.
pulled from that.
But I think this
Might be
is
easier.
much, well, it's easier to read, and it's got some more succinct information
Absolutely.
to put on the website at
And you
that.
have that, and the presentation is also on the website.
Okay, this is, okay, 'cause this
There
is
was a hand.
the only
There
thing.
was a handout today.
Oh, I didn't,
Probably
oh, it
have
was
that.
here, okay, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Back the magic.
Well, by overwhelming demand, we've been asked to move item 13 up a little closer to like right now. Because we have so many speakers, unfortunately, we're gonna have to limit the public comment of each person to, say, 2 minutes instead of 3. But we do want to get through this item. And item 13, E13, Wildlife Protection Request for Standing Committee. It's an information-only item by Commissioner Lorenas. So would you like public comment first, or would you like to give us your report first?
Oh, I think I'd like to hear what the public has to say first.
All right, on item E, Marshall Dinowitz.
Commissioners and public, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Marshall Dinowitz. I live in Belmont. I'm here for the Sequoia Audubon Society, and we strongly commend you for putting this on the agenda and support this, the setup of this wildlife protection initiative. We are willing to work with you and hope that we will be able to, as well as others that are in this audience, specifically Ken Forward and Barbara Dye, are also willing to be point people on working with you on this issue. We hope to hear from you so that we can contribute to this effort. Thank you.
Speaking of Barbara Dye, Barbara Dye.
Barbara Dye from El Granada. Ken Forward and I have sort of been an informal Audubon Conservation Committee here in the close side, and it was Ken who really encapsulated the idea, particularly protecting the birds that are in the mud flats at the far end of the Pillar Point Harbor. And he and I worked together and put together a PowerPoint for the Audubon board, and I think it's all right for me to say that Audubon board has authorized $10,000 toward the recommendations that Kent and I made for signage. We did meet with your staff, and while they said that it was preliminary, they were supportive of us working on this effort for the harbor. And so it's exciting that this came up as well, that you're looking at putting together a committee to work on this. As someone with some history in open space management, it matters how people arrive at a place, and when you get to the Mavericks parking lot, there's not a really good, there's signage high, there's signage here, there's signage all over the place. It doesn't really have a consistent message. And then there are so many signs as you go out there that are really not necessarily, they're all making different points because they all represent important points but different, and there are about to be two more that I've researched through the Coastal Commission that are going to talk about marine fisheries impacts, which are important. But protecting the wildlife out there is also really important. And so if we could coordinate, if we can all work together to coordinate the messages and come up with an effective way to let people know how to behave and where the areas of most importance are, I think it's going to benefit everyone. And it's so exciting to be working with Audubon on this, and I'm excited that you are thinking about having a committee to work with those who are concerned as well. Thank you very much.
Barbara Cossey.
Hello, I'm Barbara Cossey. I live in Moss Beach, and I'm also excited about the idea of a wildlife protection committee for the harbor. The harbor, as you may know, attracts birders from all over the country to come to our harbor to observe birds. For example, the red-footed booby that's been on the island breakwater is attracting people from all over. And I think in terms of birding, the more we track the birds, the more we have an idea of how climate change is affecting wildlife. And the harbor is an amazing oasis for wildlife, marine mammals, invertebrates, birds. And I've had times where I've been kayaking in the harbor, and there's more wildlife concentrated in the harbor than when you go outside of the harbor, at least to the unaided eye of a kayaker. So I applaud anything we can do to protect the wildlife through signage, and I'm sure there's other initiatives that could work that are even more important than signage that have to do with the stewardship of the waters in the harbor. So thank you so much, and thank you for putting this on your agenda today.
Mary Lorenz.
So Pillar Point Harbor is fortunate. We're fortunate to have in its boundaries a multitude of marine mammals, birds, and other forms of wildlife and their habitats. This abundance of wildlife and habitats is a magnet for locals and tourists, visitors who bring valuable tourist dollars to the coastside. Protecting wildlife is not only the right thing to do, but in many situations it is the law. Protecting and promoting healthy populations of marine mammals, birds, and their habitats is a win-win situation for the harbor as well as San Mateo County. Often, Pillar Point Harbor has been in the spotlight because of a rare bird or mammal sighting. So I'm asking you to, like everybody else here, or many people here, to protect and promote this valuable visitor-serving asset and to protect wildlife in and around the harbor. So I request that the Harbor District please agree to form a wildlife protection standing committee. Thank you.
That concludes our public comments on this. Commissioner Lorenz.
So, I'm so sorry, can I make one comment? I didn't know, yeah.
Just give it to her.
Great,
Or
thank you. Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Christine Corwin. I live over in Moss Beach, and actually, I just learned about this issue day before yesterday, and I really don't know much about it. And so I'm here just looking forward to learning about your committee proposal. And I am president of Coastside Dog of San Mateo County. We have 500 members. We promote responsible dog walking. And we also look forward to working with you and just we are interested in protecting wildlife, but we also have a very dog friendly community here on the coast. So I just wanted to say that we are here and look forward to learning more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lorenz.
Okay, well, first I'd like to thank all of you for coming and providing your input. Maybe I'll just read this very quickly. I don't know that all of you have gotten the board report on this. I wrote this section. It's a commissioner discussion section, and it's basically this. San Mateo County Harbor District marinas are adjacent to several local, state, and federally protected areas. There's a marine protected area, a national marine sanctuary, and an area of special biological significance. All of those areas are awarded different levels of protection for the wildlife that are present there. The harbor itself doesn't fall in those categories. We're not part of the National Marine Sanctuary, as an example. So these environments host a wide variety of avian, aquatic, and terrestrial species that migrate through, breed, birth, and haul out year-round. I don't have to tell all of you that because you're here because you know that. At present, we don't have a framework in the district to place and provide adequate protection for these wildlife within its boundaries. And so my idea here is to request that the board assign a standing committee for wildlife protection. And the concept is to bring all of you, the public, both folks that care about birds, marine mammals, all the user groups that have an interest in what's going on in the harbor together as part of a standing committee to discuss the common goal of protecting wildlife within the boundaries of the harbor. I put several, so is this available to folks through our website?
It's on the website.
As part of the,
Yes.
yep, okay. So you can find some of the items that I placed in here on the website, and there's information, but there's also simple solutions to some of the problems. A lot of what I've seen out in the harbor is just basically people not being informed about how to protect wildlife, or even informed as to why it would be important to protect wildlife. So my goal would be to have a committee that can suggest to the board. So I guess I should point out that the committee would not make rules. Our committees don't legislate harbor rules, but we make recommendations to the harbor, and then it's up to the board to vote on those recommendations and fine-tune them with the public. So that's kind of the way the mechanism works. And so the idea is to have this committee work with the district to recommend courses of action. Some of them would be really simple. Provide some of our contractors with postcards that describe what you do when you're in a kayak, how to stay away from birds, for example, and how to recognize that you're disturbing wildlife, things of that nature, things that most of you already know. So my proposition is, and I'm not exactly clear on how I go about this, maybe you can tell me, is to request that the board assign a standing committee on wildlife protection.
Is that are you making a motion?
Can I do that as a motion? That's my question.
Well, this was an information only
Well, that was-
item, so
no.
the question is how can we?
It was characterized as an information-only item.
Yeah, but there's no resolution attached to it, which
Right.
is,
No.
but how can we do that, I guess?
Well,
I think the board certainly has a prerogative, given the subject matter here, of forming a standing committee. The board can then, the president or can then populate that committee at this meeting. Also, at the next meeting, though, will be election of officers and population of all of the committees. And so it could
Do
be
that too.
created tonight and populated tonight or at the next meeting.
Mr. President?
I have no problem with saying, particularly with the community support here, to say, do you want to populate a committee tonight and have this be your last meeting? Or would you
Your
like
first and
to?
last.
First and last.
Well, let's hope it's not the last with this enthusiasm and
year.
participation. Yeah, for the year. So I'm gonna toss it back into your lap and say, what is your desire? Right now, we do have an information-only item. Procedurally, can we act on something and take definitive action on something that's not on the agenda?
It
I
is
don't know.
on the agenda.
I think in this particular instance, President Matoush, the preamble on the general manager recommendation is just recommendation only. Commissioner discussion specifically says I move that the board create a standing committee. So I think it's certainly within the purview of the board to, and the subject line is wildlife protection request for standing committee. I think it's within the purview of the board and the president to form that standing committee and populate that committee tonight.
I move that we make a wildlife protection standing committee. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right,
You can continue the discussion. If anyone wants to discuss it, I just don't want to interrupt discussion.
Feel free. Robert, do you have any questions, discussion items on this?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. Philosophically, I am fundamentally in support of this, and I am going to support it. I just want to caution us, just as a district, I want to caution us to remember what our core mission is, and I don't want us to go into sort of the regulatory waters to sort of turn us into a quasi-regulatory agency. But I am in total support of this. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Virginia, do you have comment?
No, I kind of agree with Robert, but looking at this from a different perspective as well. One of your handouts, Ed, has like no selfies with seals and sea lions, and
Yes.
I mean, I actually agree with that to a
That's
certain
from
extent.
NOAA.
So does this limit liability for people to do careless things and then get us into a situation where they're injured? I mean, could this help with that?
There's a Marine Mammal Act.
I'm just putting it out
I
there.
guess that's for Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I mean, not that it matters, it was just an interesting thing, I'm like, oh, this actually could probably help us from another
Is your question whether the formation of this committee helps protect the district? I'm afraid I'm not following. It
Well,
would
I mean,
protect the district from,
possible, I don't know, I mean, it's kind of an off-the-topic question, but I just think about mavericks and people doing careless things, and, you know,
I don't-
maybe the committee can come up with some things, I don't know, I'm just putting it out there.
the creation of
Just
this
from the
committee is of no,
Consequences.
it doesn't have legal significance.
Okay,
What the committee may recommend and what the board actually does could, depending on what that is, have some legal implications, but the creation of a committee is within your purview for all the reasons you've already discussed.
great, thanks.
Thank you.
I'd support the committee. I would caution that it does not appear to fall within the mission statement of the Harbor District. And I guess what I'm afraid of is going further straying from any purpose related to the district and then bridging out into very far-flung areas, as we witnessed when you took me out on Facebook. So that's a caution to me. But I would support the committee at this point in time.
I have one quick question to piggyback on that. How taxing would it be for the staff to prepare things for an extra committee?
That's certainly a concern. We do have limited staff and limited bandwidth. I'd want to assign a staff member to this committee, and then it would be dependent from there on how much heavy lifting the committee requested or required of staff to support their activities. So, you know, monthly meetings with a lot of deliverables from staff to the committee, that would be taxing. Quarterly meetings to coordinate outreach and something not so taxing. So that would be dependent upon the development of the scope of the committee, which would be one of the first duties of that committee, to develop that scope, bring that scope back to the board for approval.
I don't think that you should be deciding how often the committee meets.
I didn't say that. I'm
Okay,
not
good.
deciding that.
He's
I'm glad
answering my
to
question.
hear that.
So I could see letting this go for next year and saying, let's develop it next year.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
All right, do we need a roll call vote for this?
So, yeah, there's a motion on the floor.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
President Mateo?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
All right,
So
Thank you.
at the January meeting then, just to wrap this up, will be the population of this committee along with the other committees. And then one of the first orders of action for this committee
Right.
will be to develop scope for board approval.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed, for bringing this to our attention.
perfect. Item 8, Pillar Point Surface Beach, KNRV lot, CDT application and restroom facility. Staff report from General Manager McGraw.
Can you get the, yeah, and we'll let it run.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thanks.
Back to our usual suspects.
Okay. So this item is in front of the commission this evening. I'll give a little background. What you see on the screen in front of you is included in the board package. This is a very abbreviated timeline of the RV lot over the last 40 years. Starting off in 1977 when the City of Half Moon Bay issued a use permit to the Harbor District for use of the property located next to Surface Beach, the breakwater there. Not much activity happened. I'll show photographs over the course of time in just a moment. In 1996, the Harbor District considered privatizing. Same year that Half Moon Bay certified its local coastal program. In 97, the district issued an RFP for improvements, and in 98 issued a lease, or executed a lease with KN Properties the same year that Half Moon Bay issued building permits to KN. The property was developed and continued to operate, and I'm going to fast forward now to the last 15 months, where related to the concerns raised by members of the public, it was clarified that the coastal development permit had never been issued by either the city post certification of LCP or by the Coastal Commission prior to the certification of the LCP. So the city issued a compliance order to the district to direct us to apply for a CDP. The district, as the landlord, directed this back to the city, saying that it was the responsibility of the lessee to apply for the CDP. back and forth. Eventually the city noticed both KN and the district regarding that. KN made a claim that, I think to put it in civilian terms, he didn't ask for it in '98, so it's too late now. The city extended the deadline, and at the end of October, come to this in just a moment, there was a meeting, and that resulted in the topic of conversation for the rest of this presentation. So now I'm just going to take you through some images. Not coming up quite as, oh, I know, sorry, full screen. So in 1972, these images are courtesy of the Coastal Records Project, which has been recording the California coast for many years. And you can see in 1972, Debbie, could I get the pointer, please?
Oh, yes.
Laser pointer.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. So in 1972, you can see this is the RV lot here with the restroom building right in the middle of that. Not much change in 1979. In 86, the image, instead of being from offshore like that, was an aerial image. And so what I did in this was highlighted this little area and expanded it. And you can see some vehicles parked here, but still no fundamental development of the property. Similarly, not quite as easy to see, so I blew up the section. This is from 87. And you can see again, no development occurring.
Could you back up for a quick second?
Yes, sir.
That structure on the upper left corner?
Up here?
Mm-hmm. Is that the where the restrooms are?
No, the restrooms are right here.
There they are, okay.
Yeah. See,
Right,
so what
that's
I've
the
done
other
here
side,
is
okay.
blow up this section.
You meant that preschool?
Yes, preschools. So the highway is below it, and then the restrooms that are still there are right there.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that's in 87. 93, again, same situation, not much change. Then there's a gap in the Coastal Records Project. The next one we've got is 2002, and you can see the development has occurred. So this would be 4 years after the issuance of building permits and the execution of the lease. 2009, same thing, and the last image on the Coastal Records Project is from 2013, again, showing the same thing. So that covers a visual history of the site, and so the lack of the CDP is one of the two issues that have been that are considered of significance at this time. The other being general public access to public restrooms. So the lease does not state specifically that the public should be have access to the restrooms, and that matter was addressed in detail in 2011 apparently, which resulted in a letter from the district to KM stating that the restrooms are there available for the users of the RV park and the users of the day use parking, which is a part of the lease site, but not for the general public.
Do you have a quote from the, because that's not how I will recall reading the lease. Do you have a quote from the lease?
Yes. So, first of all, I mean, included in the board package.
Okay, what page?
Well, so included in the board package is the letter that was sent by the district to the,
We know about that letter.
but let's see, I did anticipate this question, I didn't include it, but here is not.
So may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
That letter was from the general manager?
Correct.
Not from the board.
Not from the board?
I
Well, I guess, I don't know whether the board directed the general
I
manager
don't
to say
know
that.
either. This was from 2011.
But it was not, that was, my understanding of, my reading of that letter was that it's an interpretation of a legal document. He's my attorney, so
I don't know the history that
Standing.
resulted in the.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that letter has any standing.
Well, okay.
I mean, it's good to have it in the packet because it's gonna come up.
Yeah. Let's see.
I have it online if you want me to.
No, I know I've got it here somewhere.
It's in the board packet.
It's on,
The
page 8-57.
well, the letter
The
is,
letter
I
is the
think,
release.
I think they were asking for,
For the lease agreement.
here's the language, it's not very, I think in this area.
Oh, there we go.
Lessee shall design and construct, to be design and constructed physical improvements for a 40-space RV park, camping facility, day-use parking facility, and a set forth in site plan. One, and then there is a long list of items, but it says repair and extension of the existing restrooms to acceptable health and safety standards. There is no mention of public access.
Well, wait, including Americans with disabilities, that's public access.
That could be for
Compliance.
public access or compliance of the business.
Aren't they the public?
I can
Yes,
see how that would be
they're-
ambiguous, but it also does not say that it's, one could read it as implying that, in my view, I'm not an attorney, but it seems like it could be read either way, it's ambiguous.
Especially seeing how the restroom was there before the
Okay.
development happened, and it was always for public use. There's,
So-
if it weren't for public use, then that would need to be specified that the restroom was going from public use to private use. Was this after the coastal commission or before the coastal commission? The year of this agreement?
It was after.
So then the coastal commission would have had to have approved a different use, which they most certainly did not. So,
Well, we've already determined that there was no coastal development permit issued for this project. The coastal commission has weighed in on a couple of occasions about various aspects of the project. Length
so all
of
of this
stay.
was illegal?
I'm not saying that, I'm saying that there was no coastal development permit issued by coastal commission or the city of Half Moon Bay for this project. Coastal commission has weighed in at various points on other parts of the project, length of stay and the like. I'd say that if, and I'm not going to weigh in then on interpretations of the lease, what I've been going by is the historical record.
Well, it was a public restroom. It doesn't say it went to be a private restroom, so I don't know how you
Okay.
could make that assumption
Well-
based on what that says.
Well, I mean, I think an argument could be made that when we executed a lease that included all of this property, then all of that property became the property of the lessee, and that lessee should manage that property consistent with the lease. And like I said, the lease does not say specifically, and the lessee shall make the restrooms available to the general public.
Yeah.
So
It's unfortunately not clear in my
I think we have found over the course of time, a number of records and documents that.
Well, what else does it
In
say
hindsight.
about public access in the lease? Anything? Because there's the parking spaces.
Mhm.
What's it say about all that? Can we read that part?
I only snatched that because that was the part that was relevant to the staff report. I'm not sure what you're saying, the day use parking?
What
I
I'm
mean,
saying, Steve, is that we need to look at the whole lease, because there is certainly, there was the assumption on the part of the district at the time of the lease that certain facilities were gonna be for public use, including the restroom and the parking.
Again, I can't speak to that.
But can we find the parking? I would like to read that section.
Okay.
Do I need to look it up online? Because I
Yeah.
can.
If you would look it up online, and I can
So-
circle back to that so that I can continue the staff report on the item at hand.
Yes.
So could I just jump in for half a second and just to remind all of you that the terms of the lease and the obligations of the parties on the lease is not on this particular agenda, which is
Right.
focused on the CDP application. The commission has scheduled items on the lease, which has elicited quite a lot of public interest, including from the lessee. So I'm a little cautious in going into a big conversation about the
But we need to
lease.
understand it.
Perhaps, but
So-
I'm just saying it's not been agendized on this
I agree with
agenda. You have had a meeting about it. We have also met in closed session to discuss it, and we are happy to do that again with you as necessary. But I'm a little cautious, given the public interest that's been displayed on this issue in the past, that we stick to the agenda.
Which is basically to authorize the staff to continue to work with the city of Half Moon Bay and KN Properties on site planning, grant funding, and permit application for a restroom facility adjacent to Surfers Beach.
That's the item
That's-
on the agenda.
That's the agenda item.
Certainly, staff from the city identified the two main issues, as I addressed, the public restrooms and the CDP issue. In order to resolve that in October, late October, your staff met with the city of Half Moon Bay, with KN Properties, and with the Coastal Commission in order to try to focus in on the issues at hand, which again were the CDP and public access to restrooms. And during that meeting, as it says in the staff report, a conceptual framework was developed to resolve these two issues. That conceptual framework boiled down to 4 fundamental points. The district will endeavor to develop a site plan for location of a new bathroom building to be accessible to the general public that will not impact public parking. So subsequent to that meeting, district staff, as of the writing of the staff report, were attempting to locate the iron pipes that were part of the survey done a number of years back, probably around 98, that would have determined exactly on the ground the corners of the property. We have been unsuccessful in that search. But we have developed a suitable site plan with primary goals of public access, no loss of parking, insufficient data for information. Sorry, I can come back to that. I'll come back to that in just a moment. So we did find a location adjacent to the trail that would accommodate a 2-stall public restroom. My direction to the architect was to find a site to minimize potential for view-shed obstruction, to ensure no loss of general public parking, to include in that the possibilities for an outdoor shower and an outdoor drinking fountain. I also specified, because it was very popular at the last public restroom I built on the beach, that drinking fountain not only be ADA accessible with a lower level fountain, but also have a virtually ground level drinking fountain for dogs. The structure as proposed will be prefabricated. These are, there are a number of companies that make these. Basically, once you've done the site work, bring them in and place them on site, hook them up. Several companies have got state contracts that abbreviates the time frame necessary and also manages the costs. The structure, being a prefabricated building, could eventually be relocated as necessary to accommodate a realignment of the trail or sea level rise. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is as easy as a building on wheels, but certainly it's not that easy, but the investment in the structure would not be a total loss. The second part of the 4-part conceptual framework was the City of Half Moon Bay will research and apply for grants applications to fund the construction of the building. City staff took this to the City Council in November, and council approved that. We were too late. We missed the deadline for the Whale's Tail grant. The Whale's Tail grant, by the way, is only a $50,000 grant out of a total statewide available of $300,000. And I did speak with the city today, and they're looking to get past this meeting for the district to possibly develop some more refined cost estimates so they can put a better proposal together for grant applications should this move forward.
Was this gonna block any parking?
No. The key is, that was one of the stipulations, there'd be no loss of
No
public
loss of
parking.
Can you, do you have a map showing?
Yes, and that's what I was trying to open just now, and, okay.
Do you want me to open it up on my machine?
Well, if I can open it here, I can do. If I can open it here, then I can project it.
Are you looking for the same map that's in our board packet?
Yes,
Yeah, which,
it is.
which one are you looking?
Page 8-59.
8-59 would be the,
Is that movie?
I can bring it up through our website and the agenda.
Yeah, it's right here. This one? It's this one.
Here you go.
There it is.
Okay, so, what we see in this, is the site currently in the hole down here, and this is an insert, a blow-up of the corner of the site. Here's the entrance into the RV lot, here's the day-use parking here, the trail is coming around here like this, and here's the building here, tucked into that inside corner. The third part of that, of the conceptual framework, was maintenance of the structure, and subject to commission approval of the project moving forward, the district would include that restroom facility into their work program for the rest of the public facilities in the harbor. And then the fourth part of the conceptual framework was that, given all of the above, KM would apply for the coastal development permit that includes both existing use of the RV lot and the new facility. Prior to, and then subsequent to that meeting, it's clear that prior to KM submitting that CDP application, all parties will need to come together and approve the site plan, an estimated project cost, and a share of the cost should grant funding fall short. So I want to make clear that this is a conceptual framework for resolving a couple of thorny issues that have been out there in front of the public for quite some time. And I want to emphasize that no commitments have been made, that staff will return to this commission prior to any commitments and for specific approval of any cost share agreement. And I'd also like to briefly outline a process from here on forward. So if all of this moves forward and a CDP application is submitted to the city, the project is reviewed and may be approved by the planning commission in a public meeting. It could be amended, it could be rejected, it could be approved, amended, or rejected by the planning commission. Any decision by the planning commission can be appealed to the Half Moon Bay City Council. Any decision of the city council could then be appealed to the coastal commission. So at every one of the steps of the way, there is opportunity for public input. And all of this is after we have gotten to the point of having a project description suitable and commitment suitable for this board to approve. So with that, that's the fundamentals of my staff report. Again, a conceptual framework for moving forward on a couple of thorny issues that have been troubling the coastside.
And
I'm
where's,
happy to answer any questions.
where's the
Have a
money?
quick
coming from?
City of Half Moon Bay is committed to being the lead in researching grants. They have a consultant that they use to research grants.
Are they gonna maintain it also?
No, I said that the district will build the maintenance of the facility into our work program.
They're gonna pay for the facility and then we would maintain it?
They are going to seek grants to pay for the facility. We would be co-applicants of the grants. That way it would be a stronger grants application. I think, in my opinion, that this is a good project for grant funding. And again, as I just said, should grant funding fall short, then the parties need to come together to figure out how to fund that shortfall.
And that's based on this attachment number 7, which
Attachment
was
number
the,
7.
this is from, to the mayor and city council.
That was the staff report from
Right.
John Downey.
Right.
Public Works Director.
So is that who you're working with, Steve, as the public works director, or are you working with the city manager?
It was John Downey who was
Okay.
taking the lead on this.
Great, thank you.
So I'm just reading here. page, what is this, page 16 of 23 of the lease agreement. It says under item 21, default and remedies, 21.1.1, the leasee has until March 31, 1999 to acquire and obtain all required permits for the operation and conduct of business associated with the lease. In the event permits are not obtained by this date, 1999, leasee shall be relieved from this lease without any remedy owed to leaseor. So why on earth do we still have a lease agreement with a company that doesn't have a CDP?
I'm not gonna answer that either, both because, for three reasons. Number one, because I don't believe it's properly agendized. Number two, because I believe we've already discussed this in closed session. And number three, because that's where those types of issues really should be discussed, not in an unagendized open session.
Perhaps we can get back to the item on the agenda,
May I ask a question?
please.
And I'm sorry,
No,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
say one more thing, but go.
No, finish your thought.
The only thought that's maybe helpful for you to have is that the one thing that the general manager perhaps didn't mention is to keep in mind that this concept, and it's just a concept because the board will approve any decision to actually do anything. This is just like a first look at something in the future. This concept is a solution to what was referred to as these thorny problems, and maybe it's worth my just saying two things about these thorny problems. The district is facing a enforcement action from the city of Half Moon Bay that we have vigorously and publicly rejected and announced that should be the responsibility of the tenant. The tenant has vigorously and publicly objected to that enforcement action and threatened to sue publicly both the city and the Harbor District, and has also publicly at a meeting here announced his perception and his lawyer's perception as to his obligations or lack thereof under the lease. So with that framework of brewing disputes, your general manager is proposing what from my legal perspective might be considered a win-win, in which the enforcement actions go away, the lease dispute goes away, the responsibility to apply for a coastal development permit is where it should be on the tenant, and the public gets their restrooms and the district doesn't pay for it. So that's, I think, the conceptual framework to resolve these legal disputes that are otherwise going to come down upon this agency.
So Steve, then are you saying that this motion would encompass all of those things if we authorize the general manager to continue working on this?
My understanding is that all the general manager is giving you a first look at this is what he's working on. If you don't want him to work on this any further, you should tell him, otherwise he's gonna bring back to you at some point in the future an actual plan for you to vote on and approve.
I have a real issue with the fact that you're saying first look. That is totally inaccurate. This little plan has been already vetted through city council and various, who knows who else. I'm assuming you've talked to the coastal commission.
Coastal Commission were in the meeting, as I described in the.
And
staff
it's
report.
already been at an agendized city council meeting, and it's just now getting to us. Since it's our land, and it would be a restroom that would be serving the public that use the Harbor District, and it's something that clearly commissioners on this board have been very concerned about for a long time. Before it went to the city council, the concept that we're looking at now should have come to this board first. So I'm just disappointed. I'm entitled to my opinion, and I'm disappointed that we aren't having this item on our agenda until tonight, when it's already gone through all these other hoops. And it's something that we should have been able to weigh in on earlier in the process, not now, when it's already been voted on by the city council. So I'm just very disappointed, because our input might have helped inform the city council on some of the issues that we're concerned about in advance of their decision. And I just feel that that was totally inappropriate. So I'm very disappointed about that, number one. Number two, I don't think that I would describe this as a win-win. I think it's, I understand what it is. I wouldn't call it a win-win. I think that the leasee is being very stubborn, and I think that it's having a negative impact on the public. They're being blocked from using a restroom facility that already exists, that they were supposed to maintain and keep in compliance with ADA access and all the rest of it. And that's been a real loss for the public. Meanwhile, there's gonna be more waiting time while people still can't use that restroom that's sitting there idle, while we're running around looking for grants, costing us staff time, legal time, whatever, that, a lot of that's already been incurred for years. For years, this has been going on. And then what we're gonna get is a portable restroom, which is a step up from a portalette, or whatever you call a portable toilet. It's gonna be a little better than that, but it doesn't deal with the fact that we've got issues of sea level rise, and we've got weather conditions, and we've got, all these other factors that need to be thought about as far as a public access restroom facility goes. And then we've got our other restroom facilities throughout Pillar Point Harbor that are in bad shape, particularly the one near the fish fire station that we've wanted to replace, not just renovate, for years. And I think that's happening. Isn't that happening soon?
There is I think John Moran could speak to that, but yes, we are working on a combined project that, at the suggestion, correct me if I'm wrong, John, of the Division of Boating and Waterways, that the boat launch ramps are Class A useful life, we should apply to them for funding for boat launch ramps, and we are incorporating restroom facilities into that overarching project out at the end there. With respect to some of the other comments, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brennan, that we're disappointed. The meeting that we had with Coastal Commission and the city was just a little over 6 weeks ago. The city only talked about grant funding. They did not have a site plan at that time. And I think that the goal here was to try to get ahead far enough that we could actually present something to you for the commission to review.
Well, I would just appreciate being in the loop earlier in the process, because coming to me now, after all of that has gone on, it's really frustrating, and I'm very disappointed with that.
Again, I'm sorry that you're disappointed that we didn't get to you quite quickly enough. The other thing I would want to characterize too is the description of the facility as a step up from basically a porta potty. I have installed these before. They're a concrete masonry unit or concrete block structures. You can specify what's called a split face block to provide a little texture to the outside, a heavy timber roof, stainless steel fixtures on the inside, and an outdoor shower.
Is it connected to the sewer?
Yes, it is.
Commissioner Bernardo.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
I need to make a comment on this.
Okay,
before
I'll
you make
go
a
after.
motion.
I'll go after that then.
Well, we also have a
public.
member of the public
Right.
wants to comment.
Why don't we
Okay.
hear from the
Can we hear
public?
from the public then?
Dave Olson.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly speak to the site chosen on this map. That location already today gets waves breaking on it during mild storms and high tide. That riprap on the curve in front of it was severely damaged last year and rebuilt, or 2 years ago and replaced last year, I forget exactly which. That is an extremely bad location to put a new structure that you expect to last for 20 years, even one that's removable, especially when you're talking about putting a sewer connection in there and presumably electrical. Should this come up to the Capital Bay Planning Commission, I would speak against it there. I would suggest it should probably be challenged at the Coastal Commission as well. I also am disappointed that we're looking at a probably 1 to 3 year project to do this when the tenant should be forced to open the existing restroom.
Commissioner Lorenz.
Okay, I have a comment and then I have a question first, just for a point of clarification. Steve, could you tell me the number of RV spaces that are currently available there? Do you know the number?
I believe it's 47.
Okay, yeah, that seems about right. And then day use spaces, do you have a sense of that?
I want to say 23.
Okay.
Maybe it's 17.
That's
Maybe
good
it's
enough, just
17.
Pardon me?
Maybe it's 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going
Okay,
to say
that's-
that 20 plus or minus.
That's close enough. So I went to the RV lot and had a look at the restrooms that are there and whether the lease says one way or the other, whether it's for the public use or for the RV tenant's use or for someone's use. They're in pretty shabby condition. I spoke with one of the RV tenants and asked them if they had used the RV lot bathrooms. They were one of the tenants that didn't have one of the ginormous RVs. They had something that just had a little porta potty. So they were from Canada, and they said, well, it was a woman I was speaking to. I was there with the Half Moon Bay reporter, and the woman said, well, I did use it. However, I had to lean forward and hold the door closed so that no one else could come in. That's the state of the restrooms, regardless of who wants to use it, just as a point of reference from where we are. So I have a few items to read about this, and I'll be quick. So 1998, San Mateo County Harbor District executed a lease with KN Properties for the RV lot, as you stated. I don't support staff's recommendation to build a bathroom at Surfers Beach. Number one, building a structure, even a temporary one, in an area that is subject to the full force of the ocean and in an area that is already threatened by coastal erosion and sea level rise makes absolutely no sense at all to me. The public does not need another building blocking their view corridor. From the very start of their acquisition of the lease, KN Properties has not complied with the request from the city and the California Coastal Commission to protect the public's use of the RV park. The public's use. KN Properties has shown flagrant disregard for the public interest. They have repeatedly ignored requests that they provide the public with clean bathroom facilities, and as you saw in the picture, they already existed. To limit the RVs to 30 days per year, and to increase the amount of day use parking. They planted trees and installed lighting to block the public view corridor. In the year 2000, the Coastal Commission Access Manager wrote Half Moon Bay Planning Department a letter requesting that they limit RV parking to 30 days per year, that the City Council protect this public use area for day use parking and limited RV parking. As you just heard, it's 47 RV spaces for 17 day use spaces. That's exactly backwards. There's a letter here from Linda Laughlin that says at that time in the year 2000 that the coastal trail is going to go near the RV park and that they expected that day use parking would be even more valuable to the public. So KM Property earns at least $500,000 a year from this lot, and arguably for over 30 years on that lease, they'll make at least $15 million. The cost to the cost to KN Properties, as far as the lease is concerned, is in the neighborhood of $30,000 a year. I would say that to ask the tenant, regardless of what it says on the lease, but especially if the lease is interpreted in such a way that it requires the KN Properties to provide public bathrooms, that given the fact that they can make $15 million throughout the lifetime of the lease, the very least they could do is provide public bathrooms. So I'm going to go over here and just point something out. In my view, what we should ask KN Properties to do and not lay down and die just because they're arguing with their lawyers. This is the bathroom here. I suggest that we remove these RVs, put this into day use parking, take the money from grants, so ask the city to continue to provide the grants, and renovate the bathrooms in this building. They're already there. They're far enough away that as far as coastal erosion is concerned, that won't be a problem for a while. It makes complete sense to just renovate this. Oops, excuse me.
Are you through?
I'd like to make a motion,
Well,
I think
but
Robert.
there might be
was
some
starting-
more questions.
Yeah. Robert started to make a motion.
My motion, yeah, if I could make my motion, mine is to authorize staff to continue to work with the city of Half Moon Bay and KN Properties on site planning, grant funding, and permit application for a restroom facility adjacent to Surfers Beach.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo,
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Aye.
President Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
No.
Commissioner Brennan.
No.
Item passes. Moving on to item 9 on the agenda. Commercial activity permit revisions, Blue Water Ventures and Princeton Waters. May we have a staff report from our finance director.
Good evening, Commissioners, President Mateusz. This item, number 9, has to do with our commercial activity permit revisions. We are bringing to you 2 commercial activity permits that need your approval as far as revising them. Number 1 is called Blue Water Ventures. Blue Water Ventures has been a commercial activity permit holder since 2006. In addition to the annual cap-based commercial activity permit, Blue Water Ventures permit states that the following monies are owed. Permittees should pay $2 per head for all kayak tour passengers exceeding the estimated 120 passenger load. What we'd like to do is revise that statement and ask to change it to the 120 passenger load threshold, clarify that statement, and Blue Water Ventures be required to pay passenger service fees consistent with all of the other kayak, walking tour, and charter boat commercial activity permits caps. And the other thing we want to revise is we want Blue Water Ventures to pay the passenger service fees in the amount of $2.32 per person for the rates and fees schedule and what the other caps pay. And finally, we also want Blue Water Ventures to post a $500 security deposit as required from the other kayak, walking tour, and charter boat caps. So we're just trying to bring them to be consistent with the others, and with the language needed clarification and revision, that's what we're proposing for that one. The second cap that we're asking for you guys to approve is Princeton Waters, and at this time, we're not revising that cap. All we're doing is extending it for 3 months so that we can review some of the language that is being discussed at the Coastal Commission, or was discussed this month at Coastal Commission, because San Mateo County is proposing a permitting process or proposed a permitting process to regulate the use of single and multifamily residences as short-term rentals in the coastal zone. And we want to review their decision at that time and also look at all of the language that we currently have in this cap and come up with a policy for approval on how to handle such cap proposals in the future. So at this time, all we're asking for that one is a 3-month extension, and we will be asking Princeton Waters to pay a prorated fee of $64.50 just for the 3-month extension of their 2017 cap. And the other fiscal impact with Blue Water Ventures is that they're going to pay the application fee of $258 per our rates and fee schedule, and they will also provide a $500 deposit. And what staff is recommending at this time is two motions. One, approve the 2018 term revisions of the Blue Water Ventures commercial activity permit. And two, approve a 3-month extension of Princeton Water's 2017 cap, allowing it to remain under the current terms through March 31st, 2018.
Okay, I'll make that motion to
Okay,
approve.
we also have
Oh.
public comment as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
let's
sorry.
not jump the gun here.
Cynthia Kerr.
Yes, hello everyone, it's good to see you. So I'm just here to answer questions if you have any questions of me, because there was some on this document that you sent me in the mail. And, yeah, I'm the owner of the vessel, Princeton Waters, so most people know me. I've been blessed with this permit and I'm really happy with it, it's doing really well. I know there's concern with the harbor because I've already received a call because I'm in the process of selling the boat. So I've already been told this cannot be, they really don't want this in the harbor anymore. So I cannot sell anybody that has the intention of using it as a, even though they have to reapply for the permit, that they're just not able to. So that really kind of tells me my business is really invalid. So, you know, it just sounds like I'm getting mixed messages here. It sounds like you guys have a plan, and that's what you're gonna move forward with. You're gonna ask me for some more money, or something for 3 months. But then on the other hand, I'm getting a message that says, we really want you gone. So I'm in the process of selling it, and it seems like kind of redundant to have this happen now, when I could, you know, virtually be gone at the end of March. So, you also asked what kind of people stay there, and do you still want answers to these questions, or what?
Who are these questions
I've
from?
been summoned here, so I'm here. But I'm really not understanding why.
So,
We're
I'm
confused.
I'm confused, so,
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
yes, please.
First of all, I don't know who summoned you to come here tonight. If it was somebody from my staff, I apologize, because I didn't ask them to.
Okay, well, I also have a letter from you,
Yeah, the letters.
asking questions.
Sure, we do have questions,
Yeah.
and we did a review. Let me just look at this particular letter, because we sent letters to all our cap holders. Okay, so this is,
It's specific to me.
yeah, this one is, what we are doing is an annual process. We review all our caps before we send out renewal letters. And that is the process right now. This year, we're trying to clean up all our caps, because a lot of times we weren't holding people accountable as far as giving us passenger service information and so forth. So with this particular one, we want more information for security. As it says in my staff report, we do have some concerns if the lessee, if the cap holder is following all of the rules that are already in the permit.
Yep.
And that's why we just want to look at it more closely. We're trying to understand, as it says in here, if you're interested in a 2018 cap, the district would only be willing to extend your 2017 cap. We're informing you that we're only extending it for 3 months at this time. And we're going to take that 3-month period, and we want to try and understand how Princeton Water operates and develop. And we are going to develop a policy during that 3 months to not just your business, but to all such caps that are provided to businesses. So it's not just us, it's San Mateo County. They're all looking at this as similar to Airbnb, it's just on the water. And we just want to have a good policy for our district on how we handle such proposals from people that want to do such business.
Well, Anita, let me ask you, I received a phone call saying, you know, really, we don't want this anymore,
Can I jump in and
Sure.
suggest that we
Yeah.
not have a two-way conversation between
Sure.
staff and a member of the public, but that staff address comments to the board?
Sure.
And, I mean, if I may say that, certainly the issue of short-term vacation rentals is high on the list of topics of concern for every municipality and county, I think, around the state, if not the country. And it's a burgeoning business, and we have no specific regulations that address particularly short-term vacation rentals in general. We would like to have an opportunity to look at that as a concept, but not wanting to pull the rug out from under Princeton Waters to extend that cap just for another 3 months while we look at that, so that we can come back with a more comprehensive approach to short-term vacation rentals in general.
Well, I have some
That's
questions.
how I interpreted it too.
Okay.
So I have a few questions. Number one, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here, because this is confusing, but it seems like if we are trying to come up with a policy, which it's my understanding we don't currently have any policy on vacation rentals.
Correct.
That we wouldn't want to target a particular business, but we would want to look at what other agencies are doing and base our policy off of things that the county and say the coastal commission or whatnot are coming up with versus scrutinizing one particular
And
business.
If I may, Commissioner Brennan, the staff report, well written by Director of Admin Anita Pyle, says, to aid in drafting a proposed district policy on short-term vacation rentals, staff will review the San Mateo County proposed permitting process to regulate the use of single and multifamily residences as short-term rentals in the coastal zone. On December 13th, the Coastal Commission determined that the proposed amendment to the county's LCP to regulate short-term vacation rentals was minor, and the amendment was approved. So in fact, we are looking very much at what is happening in the local environment to help inform anything that we bring to the commission for approval.
And so with this particular permit, the permit's up, is that right? The permit is,
All permits expire at the end of the year, generally speaking. The board approves any amendments or changes to any caps or any new caps. Staff renews caps that require no changes for an additional year. Because we are recommending a shorter term than an initial year, this is why why we are recommending that's a change to the cap. And that's why we're bringing it back to the board.
well, I just, from what I overheard in this back and forth conversation, it kind of sounded like the business owner felt like there was sort of undue attention being placed on their business versus this just being, something that we're looking at, the staff's looking at coming forward with policy recommendations based off of the county or whatever. So I think we just need to kind of be careful about how we communicate with people, because I don't think we've ever gotten any complaints about this particular business, but then again, we also have talked about the need for a policy, and now it sounds like there kind of has, it's a requirement that this policy,
No, but
we're trying to be in line with.
we're trying to develop something that we can apply uniformly and not subjectively to any current cap holder or any potential applicant for a cap.
And so then, in that case, if someone's trying to sell their business, who knows, like, everybody's got different objectives, but it would seem that we would need to notify tenants that we were going to have a policy so that they could plan accordingly, right?
But
So that's what's happened?
This is what this is doing.
Okay.
Saying they're going to renew for 3 months while we
figure out what our policy is.
I don't think we were necessarily aware that what we were doing was coinciding with the desire to sell the vessel. But I think it's true to say, is it true to say that the caps are not assignable anyway?
Right.
Right.
So you can't buy the permit?
No.
Okay, okay.
So I have a comment and some questions. So are you selling your business because you?
No, I can't. I was told like there's no way, and you can't sell it anyway.
No, I'm sorry. Are you selling your boat because your perception that the district is going to say you can't have this business is what I meant?
No.
Okay.
I was on my way out the door.
Okay.
And I got called on an ad that I ran.
Okay.
Said, you can't sell this, I said, I'm very well aware of that. We don't want this, you know, we want liveaboards or something else, we don't want any more of this kind of stuff, so. No, nobody's ever called me and said, hey, come down, have a cup of coffee, tell me what it's like, Airbnb, you know, ask me questions, how much do you make? You know, like most people do, how much do you make, how many people do you have a month? I could bring my stats down and give you all that information. I'm happy to do that on my way out. And I think it's great for the harbor. I think it's a great thing for the harbor. Under control, mine is under control. I have, you know, it's all boxed in there, what I'm supposed to do before they entrusted me with that really wonderful permit. And, you know, the rest of the harbor benefits too. The kayak people, the restaurants, I mean, it's not just you, so. The people are heavily filtered. You have about 4 layers of liability on that. You know, it's not a bad business, but I could see where, you know, if you don't put some control on it, but I've already been given all my orders on how to run the business, and I've walked the line with it. I think I've done really well with it, and tried to stay in compliance, and I did try to come in, have the paperwork cleaned up a couple of times, but I couldn't get on agenda because the harbor was in flux. But this last year I didn't go about doing it because I had other problems. But this year I'm trying to sell it, and it just seems like an odd time to get hit with this. So I took it pretty, you know, hard. But geez. But anyway, still nobody's asked me any questions, so I guess that's not why I'm here.
So what
nobody wants to hear anything from me.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what your concerns are, and so it sounds like you're upset that that there might be a policy right at the time that you're selling. Is that the gist of it?
Right. I had 2 open houses, and there's some very responsible people that came through that would have wanted to apply for the permit and carry on. You know, the harbor said no. They turned them away in person. No, we don't want it. So I tried to tell them, you know, the harbor's already told me, no way. So that cuts in half, or more than half, my ability to sell. We're gonna have to look. I've been told I need to look for somebody that's a liveaboard. Well, if you have any kind of money at all, you're not gonna want a boat. You know, is this really what you want? You know. I mean, it's a really nice boat, but it's great for an office or a getaway or a hotel room, but I don't know about living on it. It's going to be pretty tough, even though it's big for a boat. It's still going to be very hard. So, yeah, I feel like I have a noose around my neck.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I wasn't clear on, you know, what was upsetting, so thank you for clarifying that.
And I've been careful not to complain. I've really been blessed here with this, but I rent it about 12.4 days a month. So, you know, figure the overhead on that. Nobody's asked me.
So,
nobody's asked me.
Again, the action before the board is to continue the commercial activity permit exactly as is.
For 3 months.
I would ask you to please just allow me to go out gracefully. I'm on my way out the door. And develop something, you know, in the interim.
I'd also like to make it clear to the board that our administrative staff has been looking at all the caps.
No,
trying to
that's
bring
what
them
Anita said.
Into
Yeah.
A level of conformity, standardization with each other.
Okay.
This remedy was not singled out.
We're not suggesting that.
And this is just a simple, take a pause on this one to look at the bigger picture of short-term vacation rentals.
Which is what the district should be doing anyway.
So can I make my comment now? Because I have a question. So my comment is this, is with respect to a policy on short-term rentals, I think it is important for the district to have a policy. And I urge us to do that, and I think we need to reach out to the public. The public at large to see where they see all of this. It's a little bit of a special case because we're not a land-based housing operation. We're not really a neighborhood. We're kind of a hybrid of all of that. So we need to talk with our tenants and give them opportunity to weigh in on this, and also the general public. So I'm not sure how we would go about doing this, but I think that's an important bit of information, as well as what Anita's saying, is to look at all the other jurisdictions that are all trying to struggle with this.
But it's, there's a lot of, I love having a chance and opportunity to work my boat like other people do. It's very limited what I can do with it. And it was not my suggestion, it was somebody else's idea, friends of the harbor, I won't say who, but he's a good businessman and he suggested it and it worked out well. It was just an interim permit. However, people do really appreciate it quite a bit, and it's better than a boat being out there in a floating storeroom. So, I think if people can work their boat some way, that it's a good idea to allow them to do that. But they're expensive. They're time consuming, expensive, and most people can't afford one now with the cost of living here. So, Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're gonna get back to me and tell me what you decide on. Are we staying with what she
Well, I think
announced?
we have a motion.
Yeah, we have a,
So the way it's going, we have a motion right now that we have to vote on, which
There are two
says
motions.
which is asking, right, the point is that the motion that relates to you is, it would give 3 months of it would allow you 3 more months of the permit.
and then it comes back
And
to
then it would
us.
come back to us to
Okay.
hopefully establish a policy, or at least work on that, or maybe ask for more time, whatever, but that's what's on the motion now.
She's asking for fees. Let me just be clear. My fees are due now. For December, they were due first, so am I still supposed to pay the $64.50 and the $500, or are there more, or what are you asking me to do now?
$64.50 is a 3-month prorated amount
Okay.
of the $358 annual fee, and that $500 is security deposit.
This is security deposit. On what?
That's what we ask all of the cap holders to pay a $500 deposit, and that
Is this a new policy, or, because mine's almost 5 years old, or about 5 years old.
if you already have a $500 deposit on file, then you won't need to pay another $500. But if there is no deposit, as we were reviewing all of the caps, we're finding that some of the things have not been enforced or reviewed. So $500 is standard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Corralo.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve these 2 items, resolutions. Approve the 2018 term revisions of the Blue Water Ventures Commercial Activity Permit, and approve a 3-month extension of Princeton Water's 2017 cap, allowing it to remain under the current terms through March 31st, 2018.
Second.
And I'd just like to make one quick comment, because I feel like there still might be a little bit of confusion about the process, so I just wanted to go over the process one last time. So we're making a decision tonight, and there's been a motion for a 3-month extension on your permit, at which point then it would come back at some point within the 3 months, it would come back to the board for us to review some sort of policy recommendations coming from the staff. And then that's a public process, so you can come back if you want. It's not a requirement, and you can bring your friends if you want, and the public is invited to come to the meeting and weigh in on the policy that's being recommended by the staff. So no one will make any decisions further than this, further than what happens tonight, until the next public hearing on it. So there's going to be another chance to talk to the board about whatever the policy recommendation from staff is. So you definitely want to watch the agenda to make sure you don't miss it.
Thank you.
If there's no further comments, could we get a roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye. Item passes. Okay, item 10 on tonight's agenda, proposed scope and name change for the San Mateo County Harbor District Beach Replenishment Committee. Mr. Moran.
This is a motion to approve the proposed committee scope and committee name change from Beach Replenishment Committee to San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee. The current committee name, Beach Replenishment, gives the impression to the local, state, and federal agencies that the committee's scope is very narrow, addressing only one symptom of global climate change and sea level rise. Therefore, the committee chair would like the board to consider changing the committee name to San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee. It is very important to note that the primary focus of the committee will continue to be the Surface Beach Sand Replenishment Pilot Project. However, changing the committee name to San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee could provide additional opportunities for the district to be involved in local, state, and federal discussion regarding the cause of nationwide beach degradation. The scope and duties statement for the San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee will read, the San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee shall advise and assist the San Mateo County Board of Harbor Commissioners in investigating, developing, and advocating for the implementation of strategies to mitigate the impacts of climate change on district-managed properties. The committee will recommend policies, identify projects, and prioritize them for board approval. The Beach Replenishment Committee Chair recommends the board approve the proposed committee scope and committee name change to San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee.
Discussion. Commissioner.
I don't have discussion, I have a motion.
Oh, can we have discussion first, if that's all right? First of all, John, you did a great job with capturing the gist of the meetings, and I appreciate it. It's very nicely written, and when you read it, you skipped just a tiny bit of your statement. I think. So one aspect for this is that we as a district need to be part of the discussions. The county had a whole program on climate change and kind of left us out. So this is one way to ensure that we are part of the discussions, and also that any funding related to climate change resiliency or mitigation, that we're at the table to hear about it, and also have the ability to ask the board to look for the funds.
Any other discussion?
I was just clarifying with Barbara that this came out of the Beach Replenishment Committee meeting, right?
It was discussed, yes,
Okay.
by the members of the committee.
All right, I believe you were about to make a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve the proposed scope and committee name change from Beach Replenishment Committee to San Mateo County Harbor District Climate Change Resilience Committee.
I'll second.
President Mateusz?
No.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
No.
Commissioner Brennan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 11, Pillar Point Harbor Office Alteration Project. Mr. Moran, you're up again.
This is a motion to authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with John Matthews Architects to produce, design, and construction Produce a design and construction document supporting alterations to the Pillar Point Harbor office, improving staff security, ADA compliance, public access, workflow, and efficiency of the building for an amount not to exceed $31,000, and establish a contract contingency in the amount of 10% of the contract amount for unanticipated additional expenses associated with the contract, and authorize the general manager to issue change orders up to the contingency amount. The Pillar Point Harbor office is owned by the district and has housed the district front desk servicing tenants, the local community, and tourists, providing information, directions, and answering questions. This office also acts as a hub for the search and rescue efforts and harbor patrol workstations. The current floor plan and front entry configuration is not ADA compliant, is not the best use of the square footage, and is not best suited for security concerns, and lacks open connectivity between the workstations. The consultant will propose floor plan changes that would move the public entry to the existing entrance at the top of the ramp on the north side to the north side of the building. Address identified ADA issues in restrooms, entrance, exits, and signage. Create a reception front desk closer to the new entrance door, providing controlled access and a more secure employee workplace, and provide an interior with improved workflow and efficiency. The board may consider delaying further until the development of a strategic plan, as it may later be decided to move the harbor office to another yet to be determined location. Staff believes that regardless of the option selected or direction given, the amount of time necessary to develop a strategic plan and a new office space location suggests that the district will remain in this building for at least 3 more years. Given that, staff believes these improvements to workplace safety, ADA compliance, and public access are a worthwhile investment, as most, if not all, of the improvements may be transferable to a future use of the building. Staff recommends the board approve an agreement with John Matthews Architects, consultant, for design and construction documents supporting the alterations to the Pillar Point Harbor office.
Any discussion from our commissioners?
Yeah. Do we have samples of this person's work?
They're the same architectural company that we, or business that we hired to change the floor plans of the this administrative office here, the harbor office, the district office. We went through quite a lengthy process trying to.
I don't remember us seeing anything then either, did we?
Yeah, we went through quite a process trying to find interested architectural firms that would help us with such a small project. So again, we went back to the same John Matthews architectural firm for this Pillar Point Harbor proposal that we're giving to the board tonight.
What's his website?
I'm afraid I don't have that in front of me right here. It's John Matthews Architects. I have to Google it.
MatthewsArchitects.com.
I just, really would prefer that if we're gonna be sending out projects, although this isn't a very big project, that we not continually do it without some sort of
RFP
or at least 3 estimates or something, so that we're not just getting in the habit of giving somebody work. If it was a private company, we could do that. But because we're a public agency, it just feels like we're getting into some bad practices. It's been happening a lot. So I just worry about how that looks. But it isn't a huge project, that's for sure. unless it goes beyond this, is there any expectation that it would cost more?
Well, these again are the soft costs, for the design alternatives. And staff did make quite an effort to locate or to identify any other architectural firms that were interested in arguably the bigger project here at the administrative office, and were unsuccessful until we got this John Matthews to show interest, and they did do a good job for us, I believe.
Well, how did you approach, did you put out an RFP? How did you go about trying to reach out to firms? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we didn't go through the formal RFP process for this building because it was such originally it was only a $9,500 project. So.
What has it worked out to be?
$14,500.
Does look like we had 25,000 already in the capital project budget,
Yeah.
so this is only adding $6,000 in cost to this. And it brings us more into ADA compliance.
I agree. I mean, basically, it's in an amount not to exceed 31,000, which is what you've got in this fiscal implications budget status, so. But I do agree about the RFP thing, but I understand why you didn't. I think that if this has gone through this architectural firm before, be consistent, and I agree with Tom that getting things into ADA compliance for better public access and all that is very important, especially if we're gonna probably stay here for a while. So, I'm gonna make the motion to authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with John Matthews Architects to produce design and construction documents supporting alterations to the Pillar Point Harbor office, improving staff security, ADA compliance, public access, workflow, and efficiency of the building for an amount not to exceed $31,000, and establish a contract contingency in the amount of 10% of the contract amount for unanticipated additional expenses associated with the contract, and authorize the general manager to issue change orders up to the contingency amount.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, do we have any policy on at what point we go out for RFP? Because it seems like this comes up all the time, and maybe we need to develop a policy about that, because it just seems to kind of fall through the cracks. Maybe this project didn't warrant it because it was only $30,000, but there should be a point at which the staff has some guidance as to when you definitely need to seek RFP, and then maybe there's some wiggle room up until a certain number. But there have been much bigger projects that have come along that we've approved without an RFP, and it just seems to keep happening, and we don't seem to have any policy in place. And as a policy making board, we need to have policy,
especially for money issues.
We've got procurement policies.
Yeah, we do.
This process that John has laid out is consistent with our procurement.
Well, what is the amount at which we need to go out for RFP?
It's not specific on the amount, but it's professional services.
That would be procurement.
I can come back with a review of that policy, should this commission so desire.
I think we should look at the policy, because we probably haven't looked at it in a really long time. I'm guessing it's been a while, and maybe not all the commissioners currently on the board have looked at it.
No,
Is that the wish of the commission, that we bring the policy back for review?
yeah, but that
Well,
doesn't
that's
mean
not related to the motion and the second on the floor
So-
here.
But we can give
You
direction
can
to staff.
To come back with something.
I would like to do that. I'd like to give direction to staff.
There's a motion on the floor.
Well, okay, direction to the staff, you
It's
understand,
different.
bring back the policy, but in the
Is
meantime,
that
we've
the wish
got
of the, is that what there's two
Yeah,
things.
there's a
There's
motion on the
motion
table for
floor,
this,
and then
We
a
can
motion-
and the policy should come back as directed to the staff to understand what the exact policy is and to see if we need to make changes so that situations like this don't fall through the cracks.
So
they're
So there are
separate
two
issues.
things.
there are two things, and I'm trying to get the consensus of the board on whether the policy is to come back. But first, as Commissioner Chankrali pointed out, let's get a vote on the motion that's
Right.
on the floor.
Roll call.
Sorry. Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
President Mathush?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, for staff direction, I
Yes.
feel that some of the commissioners would like to review this.
Right, General Counsel was just reminding me that we in fact looked at the purchasing and procurement policy
Yes.
in May of 2017.
Yes, it's pretty recent, but
So could we look at that specific area of when it is that we make a determination about going out for RFP? So that we can tighten up the,
Is that the wish of the commission to revisit the May 2017
I
discussion?
mean, so my question is, would something like this kind of fall through the cracks?
I'm not sure what that,
Well, I
means.
mean, I understand the RFP process and I understand the procurement policy, but I don't know, it just seems like for something like this,
It seems like we should just agree to review it.
well, I mean, we just
That
reviewed
would
the
make
procurement policy. The question is, does the procurement policy
Well,
have something in there that discusses
Exactly.
this
again,
situation?
that's separate. If you want to bring it back, I can bring it back with a focus on that, if that's the wish of the
With the
commission.
focus on what?
On issues like this falling through
Okay.
the cracks, although I'm not quite
That
sure
I
what that
would be more
exactly means.
comfortable doing that,
All right?
vis-à-vis the current procurement policy.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so there's direction by consensus of the commission to bring back the policy at a future meeting to review this purchasing and procurement policy.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Got it.
Item 12 is policy 3.2, Brown Act compliance. Mr. McGraw.
Thank you, President Mathush. It may seem, I'm not sure the counterintuitive is the correct word, but a little odd that we would adopt a policy to ensure compliance with the Brown Act when we're not similarly adopting policies specific to every other act and statute to which we are beholden. However, the district has made a goal of achieving the Special District Leadership Foundation's certificate of District Transparency Certificate of Excellence. This was also highlighted in the grand jury report of 2014. One of the, and I think the last requirement for the receipt of that certificate of transparency is that the board specifically adopt a policy regarding meetings and the conduct and compliance with the Brown Act. So while the policy as drafted is a compilation of samples looked at from other agencies listed on the CSDA's website, it's not a direct cut and paste. And it's very clear that it says that the portions that are highlighted in the policy about the regular meetings are not the only parts of the Brown Act. Of course, the district will follow, but we will follow all of the relevant sections of California Government Code Section 54950, known as the Ralph M. Brown Act. So this is not intended to be a comprehensive recitation in this staff report or policy of all of those issues, but rather a fundamental statement of our compliance such that we can complete our certificate of transparency application. I also point out that once that is completed and with the training that you commissioners have done, and I'm recognizing here that Commissioner Brennan has been recognized for recognition in district governance. This is completion of a number of different modules of training put out by Special District Leadership Foundation. Board Secretary Debbie Garrett has also applied, checked with CSDA and SDLF on the trainings completed by Commissioners Lorenz, Mathush, and Chancarelli, and we have filled applications for that. So when if the board adopts this policy, we receive our certificate of excellence in transparency, we would then be eligible to apply for this SDLF's recognition as a district of distinction. And that would be the next step and another of the items listed in the civil grand jury report. The third item in regards to this was that district staff have specific training too, and it's pointed out that as general manager, I actually have the special district administrator certification also from SDLF. So with that, I would just recommend that the board adopt resolution 1721, approving and adopting policy 3.2 Brown Act compliance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I move that we adopt resolution number 17-21 and policy 3.2 Brown Act compliance.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Well, we've got some items that were pulled, and since our activity reports are more or less information only, I'd like to go back to the pulled items, starting with consent item 2, pulled by Commissioner Lorenz.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So I pulled this item because, well, actually I pulled it in, I guess, in September, so we finally gotten to it. I pulled it because the board gave, the minutes say the board gave direction to the general manager and legal counsel to initiate litigation. And that statement gives the impression that there was a unanimous decision by the board, when in fact it really wasn't unanimous. I abstained from voting because I felt I didn't have enough information to make an informed decision on how to vote. To me, that's not, that reporting is not in the spirit of the Brown Act, and it may in fact constitute a violation of the Brown Act because it doesn't accurately report how commissioners vote on this item. It's important because commissioners need to be held accountable for their actions and votes, and the only way to do this is with complete and accurate reporting. You know, at some point we'll be held to our work by the voters, and they can't really evaluate how we've done our work if they don't know how we have voted on such items. There sometimes is an argument made that, well, this was a closed session and we want to keep some things secret, but in this case we're not disclosing what we discussed in any detail. We're just disclosing how we voted. To me, it's important for the public to know that in my case, I didn't vote. So please add my full statement to the minutes.
And are you asking to have an amendment or a correction made to the minutes?
Yes, to report that I abstained.
Okay.
So, I think the minutes, I mean, this may be a fine gloss on the difference without a distinction from your perspective, but the minutes are correct in that they reflect what was said at that meeting.
Yeah.
What you have said now should be reflected in the minutes of this meeting, but to correct the meeting, the minutes would change what actually happened at the meeting,
Right.
which is that is what actually was said. So your statement will be reflected in the minutes of a meeting, but I don't think we can unwind backup time to change what actually happened. So I think the proper thing to do would be to have your statement reflected in this evening's minutes, and the meeting that happened have minutes that reflect what happened.
I'm so confused.
Me too.
I agree with
I
that.
think I understand.
I agree with that.
So
Well,
how I can help, be happy to try and help your confusion.
What I just heard, and please correct me, because I don't know if I understand what's going on here, because I was not at this closed session. But what I thought I heard you say was that you did not vote yes, you abstained on this motion. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean the minutes need to be corrected for August 16, not added to the minutes for tonight's meeting.
Can I
You
take?
will- sorry.
Well, if I could take a crack at it.
Sure.
When we came out of closed session, the statement that was made was as written here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? So the minutes are designed to reflect what happened at that time.
Okay. So I guess my complaint then is not so much with the minutes, but with the reporting of what actually happened.
And that statement will be reflected in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
Okay, I accept that, but what I still would like to make clear is that when we do have a closed session like this, it seems to me appropriate to report from out of that closed session how the commission voted. Because otherwise, I'll have to, if it's me anyway, I will go and say, I think the public needs to know how the commissioners voted, because it's important for them to understand how we got, whatever the subject is, how the commission got to where it did. Was it 3-1 or 2, whatever?
And I totally agree, because I've been in closed session many times where we voted on things and then it's not accurately reported out. And I think that's a Brown Act violation, and I think we need to report out on our votes correctly out of closed session.
Commissioner Bernardo?
I'm sorry, do you want to respond to that and then I have a question?
I want to be careful what I say so that I don't disclose what happened in closed session.
Yes.
But I'll limit my comment to say that I do not believe that these minutes reflect a violation of the Brown Act.
And
My question is this, isn't the very nature of closed session, you don't say what happened in closed session? Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of confused now. Because it sounds like we're going to talk about reporting things that happen in closed session.
So the Brown Act has very specific requirements on what gets reported out of closed session.
And how
and under what circumstances the vote taken in closed session must be disclosed, and under what circumstances it may not necessarily need to be disclosed.
Okay.
And reporting out on, again, I want to be very careful here, but reporting out on matters relating to litigation are treated differently from reporting out on other types of matters. So that's why I believe the statement that was reported out, that is reflected in the minutes, is in fact consistent with the Brown Act.
Thank you, that helps.
So maybe my suggestion, I wasn't in closed session, so there's no way I can give away what happened in closed session since I wasn't there. But one suggestion would be that if a vote is taken in a closed session meeting, which happens frequently, that there be a very clear understanding in closed session about before the vote's taken, not after the vote's taken, but before the vote's taken, so somebody can choose if they want to vote, whether or not the vote is going to be reported out.
So I think that's not only a great idea, but again, without disclosing anything, I would say that is exactly the practice of this district.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I disagree with that.
Well, if I may weigh in one last time, regardless of reporting in the past, I think that would be satisfactory to me. I'm not an expert on the Brown Act, so that's why I pulled the item.
We'll make a renewed effort to make sure that it is clear to the board coming out of closed session what will be reported out, what our obligations are to report out, and implications of whether or not a vote will be reported. So we'll make a renewed effort to make sure that occurs.
And I'd like to just point out that my concern is that we as a district operate as transparently as possible.
Absolutely.
And while some folks might characterize a closed session as a secret cave that the board goes into, I appreciate Mr. Miller's response that there's specific Brown Act guidelines that are written to protect the board under certain conditions, and that reporting is an important aspect of this, and that he'll provide us with guidelines. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
then I'll move to approve the minutes of the special meeting dated August 16th, 2017.
And I would like to just say that I'm going to abstain from voting on these minutes because I was not there at the meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
President Mateusz.
Aye. Consent item 4 was pulled at the request of Commissioner Brennan.
Yeah, we received some letters. What did I do with them? Today from 2 members of the public, De La Soul and James Lee Hahn, that felt, I'm not gonna read their, I guess I could read their whole letters, but they didn't feel that their comments were accurately recorded here. And so, did you get those letters,
I
Debbie?
did.
You
I
did?
distributed as well.
Okay, so I think we need to amend the minutes. Let's see what James says here. Where's this thing? He says, I am writing to respectfully demand that the minutes for the November 15 regular meeting of the Harbor District,
Okay.
which are set to be approved tonight under agenda item 4, be corrected to accurately reflect the public comments made by myself, De La Soul, and Catherine Slater Carter. My comments have been recorded in the minutes as comments directed to President Mateusz. This is not an accurate reflection of what I said. I specifically asked Tom Mateusz to resign in light of the sexual harassment allegations made against him, allegations which have evidence to back them up. So essentially what he's saying is he wants the fact that he requested resignation in his comment, in the minutes, versus it saying supportive of independent third-party law firm investigation. So can you add that?
Let me just jump in and say that when we do the minutes, and David spent a lot of time trying to get the minutes right, we do generally have what we call action minutes. We don't do transcriptions, so any letters received will incidentally be uploaded to the website and part of the record because they're addressed to all the commissioners. But we make all the time sort of subjective comments, decisions we have to, about how to try to translate a 3-hour or
Okay.
longer meeting.
Let's not have a big discussion about it. Question is,
And I'm trying to answer and give you a little background on how we get to there.
I
So-
know that already, so thank you. But my question is then, have we ever included a request for commissioner's resignation in any of our previous minutes?
I'm not sure that we've ever done that, I'm not sure that we've ever had that, I don't know.
Could we find out? And if we have, it would seem fair to James that his request being included. So if it's never been done and there have been those requests in the past, I know because I've been here, then that makes sense. There's a pattern. But if we have included it in the past, then we should do it now too. So that's all I'm saying. There should be parity, there should be equity. Whatever we've done in the past, let's just do it the same with these minutes and be consistent, to be fair to the public. I think that's a reasonable way to deal with it. And then with regard to Dela's letter, which I only just saw because I didn't get it, she's just asking, let's see, she says here, I am writing to ask that the minutes for the November 15 regular meeting be modified to accurately reflect my public comment. I understand that the board will be approving the minutes tonight, blah, blah, blah. As I said in public comment last month that the Harbor District should employ an independent third-party law firm to investigate the sexual harassment claims against Tom Mateusz. As well as hiring a third-party firm, it is important that any report or analysis put together by the firm the district employs is made available directly to the entire board and the public, and not handled in any way by Harbor District staff. The district has to maintain a hands-off approach on this matter to assure the public that the process used to handle Commissioner Brennan's case was fair and impartial. Please make sure that the minutes for November 15 are corrected to reflect the fact that I'm calling for the district to employ an independent third-party law firm to investigate these sexual harassment claims and to ensure that the entire process is handled independently from start to finish. I guess what I would suggest, I mean, you have here that she's supportive of an independent third-party law firm, but I think her point is that she doesn't feel that that's what's happening. So I don't know how we could clarify that except to maybe attach the letter. Would it be attached to these minutes, or where does it get
What
attached?
do we normally do?
I have a comment. I want to make,
So it would be just added as an additional item after the fact, a letter from De La Soul.
Which would be part of the minutes, this.
It would be
for
on
this
the
meeting?
agenda afterwards as, we've had distributed materials.
Distributed materials, that's what we
Yes.
do, that's
Right.
right, I recall now.
Attached where? To the
To the-
minutes?
To the date of this particular item.
To
To be
this item,
on
it
the
would be,
website.
so we would see minutes of November 15th, and here are the minutes, and then there would be distributed materials.
Right.
right,
see.
which is
So it would-
consistent what we've always done.
But it would go with,
right?
go
Yes,
with the minutes.
adjacent to the
The-
minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then, I haven't read Ed's letter, but I see he has a letter too. Maybe you want to comment on that. Okay, so then, the other thing that I wanted to mention is on page 4 of 3, it talks about the motion for, says directed staff to negotiate with Dornbush an increase in scope and cost to the existing contract to encompass comments received this evening, specifically inclusion of a discussion of an operating agreement, scenarios related to unanticipated negative scenarios, and to clarify the impact of the phasing of the development on the potential expenses and revenue stream. I guess that was the motion. Was that the exact motion? That's how you wrote it?
Yeah,
No,
Well, I
just
just,
afterwards.
my memory was that it was management agreement, not operating agreement, so maybe we just wanna check that. I could be wrong, but I think the intention was a management agreement versus, what we currently do, which we manage, plus we pay for all kinds of CIP stuff and everything under the sun. So it's just operating agreement is, I was a little bit confused by what that meant. And I think the
We've got
intention,
the same understanding of the intention.
Okay.
I think the phrase was operating, but we'll check the tape.
okay, that would be great. Then there's a public comment. James Hahn commented regarding, same page, letter distributed to board, email handout should be attached. Is this gonna be another one of those things that's attached or as a link?
Yes.
Okay. I guess it would help if we could get that in the packet, you know, when we see the minutes, so we know that's gonna be an attachment. It is, I think we used to do that. If we could do that going forward, that would be great. And then I just have one last thing. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Actually, can I just add on to that one item? I think Sabrina's right that it was management agreement. At least that's what I seem to discuss, I think, but I don't know what was in the final motion, but I believe that that was the language we used, so.
I've made a note.
Okay,
We'll
great,
review the
thank
tape.
you.
You can ask for the minutes to come back if they're corrected with that, or you can approve the minutes and just direct staff to ensure the correct usage of operating versus management.
Perfect, so then,
And may I have a quick comment?
yeah.
So thank you
I'm done.
for including my comments, and I see how it's gonna work, so I'm perfectly fine with it. Appreciate it.
And I'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes, with, I guess, the appropriate amendments that,
Can you, if there are amendments, can you just email us?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. I'll second.
Roll call.
President Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Chancarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernardo.
Aye.
The remaining pulled item is consent item 5, pulled by Commissioner Brennan.
All right, this is a recommendation to receive the final project update, notice of completion, terminating the emergency electrical repairs project at the Oyster Point Marina Fuel Dock pursuant to to California Public Contract Code, section 22050. Consistent with the Public Contract Code 22050, the district contracted with the vendor to make repairs at the Oyster Point Marina Fuel Dock. The emergency repair work was ratified by the board on November 18, 2017. The California Public Contract Code 22050 also requires the board be updated at subsequent regularly scheduled meetings until the emergency repairs are complete. Immediately after the vendor was given authorization to proceed, marine-specific electrical parts were ordered. The parts arrived on Friday, December 5th, and work began Monday, December 11th. The emergency repair work was completed on December 13th. Therefore, this notice to the board terminates the emergency in accordance with California Public Contract Code 22050. Staff recommends the board receive the final project update, notice of completion, terminating the emergency electrical repair project at Oyster Point Marina Fuel Dock pursuant to California Public Contract Code, section 22050.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to get the update, and I also wanted to mention that I have an email from Cal EPA strongly recommending that the underground fuel tanks, there's 2 of them at Oyster Point Marina, be removed and replaced as soon as possible because they are single-walled tanks, which they say that almost always are found to be leaking once they actually do the removal, and they need to be replaced with double-wall tanks. Technically, we aren't required by law to remove them right this minute, but there is a deadline by which we do have to remove them. And they said that public agencies we're probably like one of the only ones left in California that hasn't already removed and replaced their single-walled underground tanks. And they said that responsible public agencies should not be waiting till the absolute 11th hour to do this with the deadline, that we ought to take action and do it now, because chances are those tanks are leaking and there have been issues with the tanks in the past that are documented. So they are strongly recommending that we get on it and that we be a responsible public agency, and we remove those single wall tanks ASAP. And I would just like to make sure everybody's aware of that. And why it's not on our agenda, I don't know, but I think we need to get on it. So I'm very, very concerned about the public safety hazard there.
Can I ask a question, Sabrina?
Yeah.
Is there a timeline where funding's available for that kind of work?
We probably could get some grant money for it. We shouldn't be waiting, and if we wait till the last minute, it's gonna be harder to line up the money to do it. And the project needs to get funded, and I believe it should be funded by the city of South San Francisco because it's their property. That's my opinion, but whoever pays for it, that's sort of beside the point. It's a public safety hazard and it's dangerous. So somebody needs to come up with the money to do it ASAP.
Is there a motion on the floor?
It's a receive and file, so
Right.
you can make a motion, but it's.
So no, I'll pull that a motion isn't necessary.
Well, we still have to approve it as a consent item, right?
Actually, with this particular item, it's just received the report.
Oh, great.
Public contract code.
Great.
Well,
No, must notify you the emergency attorney.
in which case, I believe that we've gotten through an entire agenda.
Well, we haven't gotten to staff reports. Do we have time for one staff report?
Be happy to answer, any of our staff here would be happy to answer in the last 6 minutes, any questions you've got on any of the activity reports. I think that would be the best way to do it rather than
Could we
giving
get,
a report.
since we just had our Lighted Boat Festival, could we get a report from John on how that went?
Yeah, as, I didn't see you, but I heard that you were there. I was running around as well as Mr. Crawley. It went very well. Everyone was very excited. We had 2 different bands going on. Dave Arrington, one of our staff members, really took the lead again. This is his second year. He has actually gotten his father and mother to play Santa and Helper, and throughout the entire evening there was a long line of children waiting to get on Santa's lap. So it was hot chocolate. It was just really a great event. The boats, a large percentage participated, and it was really beautiful.
The weather was
Everyone
great.
real excited.
The weather was
great this time as
amazing,
well.
wasn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, it was downright hot.
It was the best weather ever.
Right.
I like the comment that I heard from lots of members of the public, and they all that were there, and I had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had staff from the admin building as well that volunteered to man the gates. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
All staff did a great job. Again, everybody was very excited.
Yeah, so please pass on to the staff how much we appreciate their effort, because it was a really lovely event.
And obviously, it happened in December, so I'm going to be more discuss more in the December activity report next month.
Yeah, and it was fun. We were on a commercial fishing vessel, and we had 2 pianos and a violinist, and it was really sweet. Yeah, really nice. So, thank you.
Thanks, John. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Chankrell?
Aye.
President Matoush?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.